Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
Deep in the eastern Australian wilderness, where the gum trees stretch their twisted limbs toward a grey sky, there is a place that the aboriginal Gunai people have avoided for thousands of years, a place where the earth itself seems to breathe a cold, warning breath. You are about to enter the territory of Nargun, a creature that cannot be killed, a monster that does not simply hunt, it consumes. And once you step too close to its cave, the only thing waiting for you is the dark. Before we go any further, ask yourself this. If an ancient people, warriors who knew every inch of this land, who could track a kangaroo for days without rest, if those same people refused to go near a certain cave, what do you think they knew that you do not? Gunai Kurnai people have lived in what is now Gippsland, Victoria, for over 30,000 years. Their oral traditions speak of a being older than memory, older perhaps than the mountains themselves. Nargun is not a spirit in the sky or a ghost of the dead. It is flesh, blood, and bone, but not like any creature you have ever seen. Descriptions vary, but they all agree on one thing. Nargun is a monster made for slaughter. Witnesses in the old stories describe a low, massive body, half animal, half stone. Some say it has no neck, a great head sitting directly on broad shoulders. Its arms are long and powerful, ending in claws that could tear the bark from ironbark trees, and its skin that is the most terrifying detail. Nargun's skin is said to be impervious to spears, boomerangs, or stone axes. The weapons of the Gunai simply bounce off, useless as twigs. Think about that for a second. A predator that cannot be wounded, that cannot be stopped by the tools that have killed every other dangerous animal on the continent. This is not a crocodile or a shark. This is something else entirely. Tilp, the monster's home, is a specific cave, the Den of Nargun, located near the Mitchell River in Victoria. Today it is a tourist attraction, a place where families take photos and children peek inside with flashlights. But the Gunai Kurnai never treated it as a curiosity. For them, the cave was a mouth, a throat leading directly into the belly of the earth, and Nargun was its tongue. Might be wondering, if Nargun cannot be killed, how did the Gunai survive? The answer is simple. They did not fight. They avoided. No warrior ever stood before the cave and challenged the beast. No songline tells of a hero cutting off Nargun's head. Instead, the stories are warnings, precise instructions on where not to go, when not to hunt, and what to do if you hear a certain low growl coming from the rocks. Imagine a tribe of people who have faced down giant goannas, venomous snakes, and rival clans, yet they say there is one monster you do not look for. You do not track it. You hear its name, and you walk the other way. What kind of being commands that level of fear? The first written accounts of Nargun appeared in the late 19th century, when European settlers and anthropologists began recording Aboriginal legends. One of the most chilling descriptions comes from a man named Alfred Howitt, who spoke directly with the Gunai elders. Howitt wrote that Nargun was a stone-dwelling cannibal, a creature that would seize any person who ventured too close to its lair, drag them inside, and devour them completely. Not a single bone would be left. Let that settle in your mind. No bone, no trace. You would simply vanish from the world as if you had never existed. But here is where the story takes an even darker turn. The Gunai Kurnai specifically say that Nargun cannot be killed by black men, meaning Aboriginal people. But they never said it could not be killed at all. That small detail, that single crack in the legend, has led some to wonder, is Nargun vulnerable to something else? Steel, fire, maybe a different kind of weapon. Or is the warning more disturbing, that Nargun simply chooses not to die for them, that it saves its death for someone else? You are now standing at the edge of the known world in this story. The cave exists, the legend exists, and the monster, according to those who remember the old laws, still waits inside. In the next part, we will step closer to that cave. We will examine the reports of missing people, the strange sounds recorded in the dead of night, and the question that no one dares answer out loud. What if Nargun is not a legend at all? The Mitchell River cuts through the landscape like a wound. Its waters are dark, almost black in the shadows of the surrounding cliffs. The Den of Nargun is not a deep cavern, but a rock shelter, a massive overhang of weathered limestone. From a distance it looks like any other geological formation, but as you approach, the air changes. It becomes heavy, damp, and cold even on a summer day. Locals who have visited the site often report a strange feeling of being watched. Not the ordinary paranoia of a hiker alone in the bush, but a focused, predatory attention. Some say the silence around the cave is unnatural. Birds stop singing. Insects go quiet. And then, if you listen very carefully, you might hear a low, rhythmic breathing coming from inside the rock. To Gunai Kurnai tell a specific story about a young woman who once ignored the warnings. She was gathering yams near the river when a sudden storm forced her to seek shelter. The only cover nearby was the Den of Nargun. She hesitated, but the rain was cold and the wind was rising. She stepped inside. People found her woven basket floating in the river the next day. The basket was intact, still half full of yams. But the woman was never seen again. The elders did not search for her. They did not call her name. They simply turned away from the cave and never spoke of her except to say she went to Nargun. What makes this story especially grim is the absence of struggle. There were no screams reported from the cave, no signs of a fight. The woman simply entered, and then there was nothing. It is as if Nargun does not hunt with violence, but with a kind of finality. You cross the threshold, and you cease to be. Some researchers have tried to explain Nargun as a memory of prehistoric predators. Australia was once home to massive carnivorous marsupials like Thylocoleo, the marsupial lion, which had blade-like teeth and could crush bone. Thylocoleo became extinct around 40,000 years ago, but human memory is long. Could the legend of Nargun be a fossilized nightmare? A story passed down from an age when giant killers actually roamed the forests of Gippsland. It is possible, but there is a problem with that theory. Thylocoleo did not live in caves. It was an ambush predator that hunted in trees and open woodlands. And crucially, it could be killed. Aboriginal people likely hunted Thylocoleo to extinction, but Nargun cannot be killed. That detail, the invincibility, does not fit any natural animal. So, if not a lion, then what? The Gunai Kurnai have no doubt. Nargun is a unique being, a creature of the stone itself. Some legends describe it as part of the land, as if the cave is its body and the monster is its will. When you approach the den, you are not walking toward an animal. You are walking toward a place that is hungry. Think about the implications of that. A location that eats, a rock that digests, that is not a biological predator, that is a supernatural one. And yet, the Gunai are practical people. Their stories are not fairy tales for children. They are survival manuals. If they say stay away from the Den of Nargun, it is because someone who did not stay away did not come back. That is the logic of the Dreamtime. Not fantasy, but law. Now, consider modern Australia. In the last 50 years, dozens of hikers and campers have disappeared in the Gippsland region. Most are eventually explained as accidents, falls, drownings, or getting lost, but some cases remain open. Some bodies are never found. Search teams comb the bush for weeks and find nothing. Not a boot, not a scrap of clothing, not a single bone. You are allowed to wonder. How many of those missing souls simply walked too close to a certain cave? The official records do not mention Nargun, of course. They cite inconclusive evidence and ongoing investigations. But the Gunai Kurnai know. And if you ask an elder, they will not give you a map. They will not tell you a heroic story. They will look at you with ancient eyes and say, "Do not go there." In the next part, we will confront the most disturbing question of all. What happens if Nargun is not confined to its cave? What happens if it moves? Because some recent accounts suggest that the old monster is not staying home anymore. You have learned about the Den of Nargun, the invincible cannibal that the Gunai Kurnai have feared for millennia. But now we must ask a question that will change everything you think you know about this legend. What if Nargun is not trapped inside the cave? What if the cave is only where it sleeps, and the monster wakes up hungry? In recent years, a handful of modern witnesses have come forward with stories that do not fit the traditional narrative. These are not Aboriginal elders sharing ancient lore. They are backpackers, hunters, and even police officers who have encountered something in the Gippsland bush that defies explanation. And their accounts share a common thread. They did not see Nargun in the cave. They saw it outside. One report from 2008 involves a group of 4 campers near the Mitchell River. Late at night, around 2 in the morning, they heard a sound that they first mistook for a large kangaroo. Heavy footsteps, then a scraping noise like stone on stone. But when one of the campers shone a flashlight toward the tree line, he saw a shape that did not move like any animal he knew. He described it as low to the ground, wider than a man, and completely silent except for the scraping. The thing stopped when the light hit it. And then, instead of running away, it turned. The witness said he felt a wave of cold, not from the air, but from inside his chest. He dropped the flashlight. When he picked it up again, the shape was gone. But the scraping continued for another hour, circling the camp at a distance. Now, you might dismiss this as a tired camper mistaking a wombat or a fallen log. But wombats do not circle camps for an hour, and fallen logs do not turn toward flashlights. The Gunai Kurnai have a word for what that camper experienced. They call it Narganos, the presence of Nargun, and they say that once you feel it, you are already marked. What does it mean to be marked? The elders explain it this way. Nargun does not chase. It does not need to. The monster creates a kind of attraction, a pull that draws its prey closer over time. A marked person will feel an irrational urge to return to the cave. They will dream of dark stone and the sound of breathing, and eventually, despite every instinct, they will walk back to the den, and they will not walk out. Consider the case of a missing fisherman named Darren McAllister, who disappeared in 2015. Darren was an experienced outdoorsman, familiar with the Gippsland region. He told his family he was going for a weekend trip to a remote stretch of the Mitchell River. He never returned. His car was found parked on a dirt road 3 kilometers from the Den of Nargun. Inside the car, his phone was still on, the battery at 60%. There were no distress calls, no messages. Search parties covered the area for 2 weeks. They found his fishing rod near the water. They found his cooler bag on a rock, but they never found Darren, not a trace. The official report says, presumed drowned, but the local Gunai community quietly shook their heads. One elder, who asked not to be named, told a journalist, "The river didn't take him. The stone did." You are listening to these words right now, perhaps in a safe room, under electric light. But pause for a moment. Imagine that place, the silence, the cold, the feeling that something is watching from a darkness that has no end. That is the world of Nargun, and according to the old stories, that world is not separate from ours. It is layered just beneath the surface, like a sheet of ice over deep water. The Gunai Kurnai believe that Nargun is connected to other dangerous places in the landscape. There are at least 3 other caves in eastern Victoria that carry similar warnings, one near Lake Tyers, another in the Snowy River Valley, and a third deep in the Strzelecki Ranges. Each cave has its own name for the monster, but the description is always the same. A low, invincible, man-eating creature made of flesh and stone. This suggests that Nargun is not a single individual, but perhaps a species or a type of being that haunts certain geological features. Could it be that the ancient people of Australia recognized a predator that we have forgotten, something that lives not in forests or oceans, but in the bones of the earth itself? There is a scientific concept that might help us understand. It is called predator permanence, the idea that a successful predator does not need to be fast or strong, it only needs to be patient and inescapable. Nargun, as described, is the ultimate expression of that idea. It does not hunt, it waits, and because it cannot be killed, it has all the time in the world. Think about how many lost hikers are never found, how many people simply vanish from national parks each year. The official numbers are low, but unofficial counts from search and rescue volunteers paint a different picture. Bodies go missing, evidence washes away, and sometimes the only explanation is that something took them. You might be asking yourself, why has no one filmed Nargun? Why is there no blurry photograph or shaky video? The answer, according to the Gunai, is that the monster is not a thing that can be captured by cameras. It exists in a different register. You cannot photograph fear. You cannot record the feeling of cold in your chest. Nargun is not a creature you see. It is a creature you survive, or you do not. But there is one more layer to this nightmare. The Gunai Kurnai also say that Nargun can mimic sounds, not like a parrot or a lyrebird, but human sounds, crying, calling for help, the voice of a loved one. The monster uses these sounds to lure people close to its cave, especially at night. So that distant scream you hear in the bush, that desperate shout, it might not be a lost traveler. It might be the stone calling you home, sir. Several modern accounts describe exactly this phenomenon. A hunter near the Den of Nargun reported hearing a woman's voice crying for help from the direction of the cave. He was about to go toward it when his aboriginal companion grabbed his arm and whispered, "That is not a woman. That is Nargun." The hunter stayed where he was. The crying continued for 10 minutes, then stopped abruptly. No one else was ever found in that area. What would you have done? Most people would run toward the crying voice. It is human instinct. But in Nargun's territory, instinct is exactly what kills you. The monster knows your mind better than you do. It knows that you want to help. It knows that you are curious. It knows that you are reading this story right now, and a part of you, a small, dark part, wants to go see the cave for yourself. Do not go. The Gunai Kurnai have survived for 30,000 years by listening to that warning. They are not cowards. They are not superstitious. They are the descendants of people who learned the hard way that some places are not for walking, some caves are not for exploring, and some monsters cannot be killed because they were never alive in the way we understand life. So, here you are, at the end of this telling. You know the name. You know the place. You know the sound of breathing that waits inside the stone. And now you have a choice. You can forget this story, dismiss it as folklore, and go back to your ordinary life. Or you can carry it with you, a small cold weight in your chest, a memory that whispers every time you walk alone in the dark, every time you hear an unexpected noise, every time you feel something watching from a place where no eyes should be. Nargun is patient. It has been waiting for thousands of years, and it will still be waiting when you are gone. The only question is, will you ever come close enough to hear it breathe? The answer, if you are wise, is no, but wisdom is not always what guides our feet. Sometimes fear guides us, and sometimes curiosity leads us straight into the mouth of the stone. The Den of Nargun still stands in the forests of eastern Victoria. Tourists still visit. Children still shine flashlights into the dark. And somewhere deep inside, beyond the reach of any light, the old monster waits. Not dead, not sleeping, just patient, just hungry, just remembering the taste of human flesh and the sound of footsteps approaching. Do not be the next set of footsteps.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.